she was so upset, like she was terrified. Like she obviously knew she'd been caught and knew it was someone in the class. And I looked her straight in the eyes, so I wanted her to know it was me. And but she couldn't make eye contact. She just like sat back down, and I was like, "You get what you fucking deserve." But if we were in person, I could not have sabotaged a cheater like
really,
that.
Really. Liza says this sounds like Jessica's investigative journalism origin story.
Welcome to Behind the Scenes. We are back to Behind the Scenes this week because there's no college meet. And there's GTP Cup this weekend, but no college meet. So next week we'll do regionals. But today, this is our regular year-round lunchtime if you're on the West Coast, and your 3 o'clock slump time if you're on the East Coast, and your Friday night evening joy if you're one of our European listeners. This is the show where we answer your questions. We talk about what's in the news. We talk about stuff that's not in the news and is just life stuff. And you can listen to this in your favorite podcast player. You don't have to join us live to ask questions. And the show is rated PG-14 because of feelings. And happy Nowruz to all of our Persian peeps. Twisted Apple says,
European listener finally able to listen to live. Yay.
Yay. Welcome. So when college season is over, this is what we do all year. Unless we're at a competition, then we do lots of lives from competitions like Classic, Championships, Worlds is our daily ones. So today is March 28th, and Fantasy Regional Game launch is imminent sometime this weekend. And the live show tickets for NCAAs, the in-person live show tickets, will be also available this weekend. There, currently you can get your season pass for live shows for the price of 3 for a short time only. Okay, speaking of the pit, we were going to talk about on this episode about how there's a bunch of gymnasts who don't go to school anymore. I mean, we always knew there were gymnasts that don't go to school.
Like, I assume all of my classes would have been virtual, and
yes.
I would have loved it.
Catching the cheater. Yeah, so we had this class that I can't remember which one it was, but it was like one of those classes that was very hard, and it was graded on a curve. Clearly it was graded on a curve because they're like,
because you passed it.
We know you. But this class was one of those that I was like, it's mostly math, and I'm barely going to make it out of here like the rest of us, because this is not our forte. But it was graded on a curve. And then there was the freaking PT, all the PT prereq that were going to go to PT school, physical therapy school, were in our classes. So they ruined it for everybody else because they were the people that were really good at math and had really good SATs. So the rest of us.
I loved ruining curves.
So anyway, it's graded on a curve. And I kept noticing that we had a test every week in that class. And this one chick kept going to the bathroom. And I was like, so on the final, I followed her, and what I found was in one of the, I waited to see what toilet she was in, and then I went in the same one. And in the tampon deposit thing in the bathroom, which some Europeans, some of you guys have those incinerators in the bathroom. It's not an incinerator. It's like a little extra trash receptacle in the actual right next to the toilet. That's like a tiny iron box that you can put your tampons and pads in. And in there, I pushed it open, and what did I find? A notebook. So I had taken with me athletic tape, and I taped the pages shut, and then I taped the entire book shut. And she got up later to go to the bathroom again, and when she came back, her face was green, like she wanted to throw up. She was so upset, like she was terrified. Like she obviously knew she'd been caught and knew it was someone in the class. And I looked her straight in the eyes, so I wanted her to know it was me. And but she couldn't make eye contact. She just sat back down, and I was like, "You get what you fucking deserve." But if we were in person, I could not have sabotaged a cheater like that.
Really. Liza says this sounds like Jessica's investigative journalism origin story. Really?
Pretty much.
Really. In my high school, this was a class I was not in, but a friend of mine caught someone cheating and reported them, and the school was like, yeah, we're not going to do anything about that because it might hurt their college admissions, which was the whole point of the school. So no one ever got in trouble for anything. Because like if we punish them, then they'd have to report that they got like suspended on their college applications, and that hurts the school's reputation because you don't have the students getting into as good of colleges. So they never did anything about anything.
You went to one of those schools.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
That's why like when people talk about like affirmative action in colleges, I'm like, the whole system is rigged. Like, there's no such thing as like a meritocracy where the people who deserve it, like, if you have the money to go to a prep school, you are rigged to get into schools that are better than everyone else. It's never been a fair system. It's not a fair system. Removing affirmative action only makes it even less fair.
Yep. God. Michelle.
So that's my life example of that.
Bars section.
Oh, we have lots of bars questions.
So many
okay. Bars. Gymnastics fan says, during last week's behind the scenes, Jessica said no gymnast should ever have bent elbows on bars unless she's in the middle of a release move. If they're touching the bars, their elbows should be straight. I'm watching the SEC Inside episode about SEC championships this past weekend. There's a lot of slow-mo, and nearly all the gymnasts have bent elbows when they're doing giants.
Yep.
Leanne Wong might be the only one who doesn't. Are their elbows supposed to be straight the entire time? I'm guessing if they're bending them, they're doing so to get momentum. What should they be doing instead?
So this is part of, I am trying to copy this link 1 second so we can put it up. So basically the way that this is also has to do with like learning the technique right from the beginning. Like if you're trained as an elite from the time you're an egg, like Leanne Wong was, then you have a better shot of doing stuff without deductions. But if we look at the bars part of this, so basically, you're supposed to have the right enough power and kick out of your kip to not need to bend your arms. So you lean forward so far and have so much kick with your legs. And I don't mean kick like one leg at a time, but with the way you're extending the legs behind you.
I mean, you could.
You could. It's been done like that. But that would be a deduction, although pretty. You lean forward, you lever yourself so far over the bar. I mean, it's scary to learn. That's why like a lot of people learn the precursor to in the developmental program to learning a cast handstand is a squat on, because to do a squat on, you have to lean way over the bar and it's scary. So, but you have to lean way over and it feels like you're going to fall right on your head. And then you push back on the bar and get yourself in a pike position or in a handstand. So you lean way over with straight arms and you have so much force. Look up someone doing, maybe fact checker can do this, the drills for cast handstand correctly. And you'll see the right way to do it. But yeah, you have so much power through good technique that you don't need to bend your arms. It's possible. But yeah, no one should be basically getting a 10 because there's like 2 people who don't bend their arms on bars. I mean, Audrey Davis, Leanne Wong. Who he doesn't. It's a very short list. Oh yeah, Riley's another one who has really perfect technique, which is always the thing that I'm like, there's so many gymnasts that have perfect technique and we love their gymnastics, but the way they got to have this beautiful gymnastics was not a healthy way. And what is our role in all of it? Anyway, but you can get perfect technique without having a crazy coach. Single bar release.
Allie says, I wanted to share a different perspective on the frequently discussed opinion that a single bar release should be required in NCAA bars. I'm a former gymnast and a current gym mom, and my daughter is a first-year level 10 this season. After watching her and her teammates all work various releases over the years, I can say with almost certainty that a Maloney or Shaposh is just as difficult, and in many cases harder for many girls to learn compared to a single bar release. Especially for girls that struggle on bars, strangely enough, single bar releases like Jaeger's and Ginger's have, in my experience, been easier for them to learn. Our coach prefers the Maloney to pack or bail combination because it creates a shorter routine with fewer deduction opportunities, yes. Yet we have several girls performing single bar releases simply because they were unable to master a Shaposh or Maloney. We even have a couple girls committed to top D1 programs who have been unable to learn Maloney's consistently. I think it's important to recognize that what may seem like an easier release combination really depends on the gymnast, and a blanket requirement could unintentionally penalize girls with different strengths. Although I also have to recognize my bias, as my daughter is a Maloney to pack girly. Don't take that away from her. Thanks for the great content you put out. I look forward to listening every week.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that the question is really like, do we want, if you're a D1 gymnast, but this counts for all the levels. I mean, this is D3, doesn't matter. If you're a college level gymnast, should you be able to show mastery as you're supposed to if you're an FIG gymnast that you can do between bar releases and a single bar release and a double flipping dismount or a double twisting dismount, or like, we still allow squat ons. So
But we don't want that to be the
we
case.
don't want squat ons. Anything but a squat on is better. But like right now, if you can't do a single bar release, you can substitute with a very difficult. These are way harder. Like the Packs and Maloney's, all that, they are way harder. You can fake a really bad ginger before you can do those. Those you have to have legit strength and power and consistency, and they're dangerous. And yeah, so I think you should have to show mastery across the skills. So I want no bullshit mounts either. I want a C level mount on bars. I want to flip over the low bar or just jump over the low bar to the high bar. Like I want something like all these kips. Oh, so boring. Make it exciting from start to finish. I mean, there are exciting routines, but
I think my feeling about the same bar release is less about the difficulty and more about that it's more interesting to watch. Like it's more, there's flight and risk on an amplitude and all of that, and also mostly the risk of the falling.
Yeah,
is what you want as a viewer in a viewer experience.
While we read this next question, a fact checker is going to put up a video of a drill of cast handstands where you can see the correct technique for what your elbows are supposed to look like. See how those elbows are straight and she leans forward? This is a super easy one. Like to actually do it, you're going to be leaning way, way, way more forward. And she actually is bending her other arm a little bit, the far one. But yeah, that's a version, like an easy beginner version. Explain the deduction.
Shannon says, after the bars scoring craziness that was SEC championships, can you explain what the deduction is actually supposed to be for a missed kip cast handstand, as in Faith Torres's routine, or having to go over the bar and turn back around? It's clearly less than a fall, but judges seem to treat it as a minor handstand error. What is it actually in the JO code, and what does it seem like judges actually take in NCAA? Thank you for getting me through the start of 2025.
Oh, thanks, Shannon. Thanks for getting us through the start of 2025.
I would say for Faith Torres's routine, which if you didn't see it or don't remember, because it was already last weekend, the major error in that routine was she goes to cast a handstand on low bar. She comes up short as the cast handstand and kind of has to readjust, stop, recasts, and then does her cast half turn on the low bar. And it was controversial because she got a 9.775, I think. And it was generally, the perception was, that's a major mistake. Why is that like kind of a good countable score? I think in a case like Faith Torres, it's really being deducted just like a missed cast handstand that's not hitting vertical is what you're getting there. So definitely at least some of the judges only took a 10th there, maybe a half 10th for being short of handstand. I think it was farther than that, but also for me, there should be a rhythm deduction because you're pausing and adjusting and then not completing the element. You're abbreviating the rhythm of the routine, but I think, at least a couple of the judges probably only took half 10th or a 10th for being short of handstand. The issue with her score for me is that there were other things in this routine. It was not her strongest bars routine, even without the missed cast handstand. Like on dismount, she does a little scoot, the little half 10th scoot back, and then another step after that. So I'm like, okay, there's a 10th and a half on dismount. She catches her ray a little close. When she does the half turn on low, there's like a kind of a form break leg separation that she doesn't usually have, but she was like doing the skill again and was probably like, I made a mistake. So there's all of those things adding up together. So for me, it should probably have been in the 9.6s rather than, 9.775. Some judges giving 9.8, one gave 9.85. And I'm like, that's just the landing, not even the missed handstand. But I think, it's probably a smaller deduction than I'd like it to be. Which is why we saw a couple pretty high scores for missed cast handstands on Oklahoma's bars, because they're probably only taking like, oh, you were short of a handstand.
Description of common bar skills.
MJ says, I'm thrilled with your detailed descriptions of various moves on the bars and technique like watching for straight arms. Of the 4 events, I know the least about what's what on bars, but even with a lack of specific knowledge, it looks like the majority of gymnasts do the same or nearly the same series of skills. After watching a full day of conference meets last Saturday, it became sort of uninteresting. Could you name the 3 or 4 most commonly performed skills and describe them a bit? My dream is for your narration over a slow-mo video. Seeking truth and perfect knowledge. P.S. I really don't like the stand on the low bar thing. Do we see it as much in elite circles? I love when someone connects all their skills continuously and fluidly. No, we don't. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do a squat on an elite.
No squat-ons allowed. No standing on the bar allowed. That's why you can't stand on the bar and do a Corbett anymore on FIG gymnastics, which is like the back dive and catch the bar again. But you can do it on beam, but not on bars. Okay.
Well, you're supposed to stand on the beam. That's kind of the whole apparatus.
That is a part of it.
That ability is being showcased on beam, so it should not also be part of bars.
I didn't like the standing on the bars, any of those skills, because it totally changes the rhythm, which is why I don't like handstands to stop and handstand. Unless you're showing off and then doing a split.
Psychopath. Yeah.
They can show handstand, but I don't want you to sit there. It's boring.
Okay, so
most
skills. Commonly performed skills. Oh, so as we talked about with the previous question, a lot of people in college routines will do a Maloney, which is the toe-on version of Shaposhnikova, which is the name for the clear hip version of this skill, but also is used to kind of encapsulate all skills in which you are on the low bar, travel over the low bar to then grab the high bar, and so you're catching it and swinging back facing the low bar. So you will see a lot of people do that from a toe on, and then we'll connect it to a bail to handstand, which is when you are straight body, release half turn in the air to land in handstand on the low bar, or a pack salto, which is a flip. You're swinging toward the low bar, flip, grab the low bar again, so you're facing out that way. That's extremely common in college routines. Have I explained those skills like you know what I'm talking about, or was that just insane nonsense garbage?
No, I think those are really good. I was just going to put a video of a Tkachev drill in here for fact checker to put up, so you can see. So Tkachev is the other one that's like you see a lot. Not as much in college.
Yeah, not as much in college. I think we see a lot more Jaegers, which is where you change your grip. You do a giant swing and then a grip change called a blind change, usually, where you are switching to reverse grip and doing a half turn, and then swing back, release the bar. Most people in college will do it in a straddle position, but you could do it in piked. You can do it laid out. You can do it tucked, but no one does that. Regrasp the bar. So a flip in straddle position to regrasp the bar. That's the most common same bar release in college.
Yeah. Is there any other ones that are... And the Bahardwaj, of course, is the most difficult skill that's being done in college on bars, I would argue, except the full twisting double layout dismount.
Full twisting double lay dismount, yeah, I was going to say.
Which there are a few gymnasts doing. But Bahardwaj is where you do a flip from the high bar to the low bar in the laid out position with a full twist. And it's amazing when people can do that and make it look pretty. Because when Mohini first did that, it was wild, and it was like no one will ever be able to do this. It's nuts. And now you see gymnasts that do it like perfect form, perfectly straight. They don't move through the horizontal plane. It is like on axis, nuts.
So you'll see Emily Morgan does that. Frida Esparza does that. Jade can do that, but she has a lot of options. Those are there are probably other people, but those are the ones that come to mind. Who do you think has ever done the Bahardwaj the best?
I think Frida's is one of the best that there is. It's so straight.
Pangs was good.
Was good. I'm trying to think about... There's an elite that does it really well too. That I can't think of right now who it is.
Suni's does it very well.
Suni's is really good. And there's different techniques. Like some people do it kind of archy, some people do it straight. We have our next question is about Amari Celestine's bar dismount.
Okay.
And
Okay, go ahead.
So yeah, so this one it's a toe on. So some people call this a soul circle in the olden days, or I'm sure in Europe you guys call it a something that sounds like a cookie, but I forget what the word is, but you put your feet on the bar in between your hands for this one. You can do it straddled or with your in a pike position, and she kicks her feet off the bar, then does a branny out of it. So it's basically a toe on front half.
Yeah, and in the piked position.
Yep.
The question was about the name of it. So it's a Komaniche tucked, right?
A Komaniche is a back tuck. Fact check me on that.
Isn't that what Celestine does?
No, hers is a front. Hers is a branny. She doesn't do a back tuck.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it again to make sure. Yeah. She does. Oh, actually, Amari doesn't do it. It's not a soul circle. She's doing a stalder, which is way harder.
A stalder.
Yeah, she does it out of a stalter, and that's crazy hard to get that power. Like, she's a complete badass. Yeah. A Komaniche salto.
So Komaniche, she did a half turn. She was facing out. She did a half turn and then a back tuck.
And then a back tuck.
But it's not a front tuck with half turn.
Right.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, Komaniche is a very solid back flip, not a front flip with a half. But I don't know how they credit it now. I don't know if the code says something.
I think
different.
In Elite they're all C's, but they might be listed still differently.
Yeah, I feel like is it the same that doesn't matter when you do the turn, which is nuts because it's way scarier to do the backflip than a branny out. But yeah, Amari's that dismount's really hard and really cool without touching her feet to the bars. That's the stalder. Straddled. Holding the low bar.
Sarah says, I recall you were answering a number of detailed questions regarding the uneven bars, like right now. I've been noticing Kentucky's coach often holds the low bar with one hand while the gymnast releases to catch the low bar. I'm always surprised the coach is allowed to hold or touch the apparatus while the gymnast is using it. It doesn't seem completely necessary for spotting, as not everyone does it. Just a habit of his? Is it totally fine to do? So yes, it is totally fine to do. Some coaches will do it. You have said before it's you're steadying the bars.
Yeah. You're like making sure that they're not wiggling around. Yeah, so you can do it. I mean, the men do this. You'll see that their coaches will stabilize the P bars when they're doing sideways skills. So if they're doing something not parallel, but what's non-parallel? What's that word?
Perpendicular?
Perpendicular. Thank you. I was close. I had a P in the sound. We can look at
you're saying bup was close to perpendicular? That's what you're saying? Okay, gotcha.
Here's the Komaniche dismount, so you can see
it's half. It's like a toe on half turn to back tuck.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll give okay. I actually want to show Amari's dismount too. So let me give this to fact checker so he can show really quick. So you can see the difference back to back, those two dismounts. It's queued up just to show her dismount. The next question, we're going to talk about Emma Malabuya's Big Ten routine after we watched. What did she do? Oh, her beam. Okay.
Her beam, yeah.
So Amari's, you can see watching those back to back, the difference.
Stalder, then a front pike half.
Yeah. Which I would call a front pike half and a branny. They're kind of the same. They're basically the same thing.
I mean, I think a branny it's a branny is a front salto with a half twist. I usually think of that as being tucked if you're going to just say branny.
Really? I never think of a branny being tucked.
Just that's because that's the most basic version of that.
Okay, Emma Malabuya's Big Ten routine.
Grace says, I'm wondering if you could discuss Emma Malabuya's routine from Big Tens. After her front aerial, she does a beat jump and usually connects it into a ring jump. On this routine, she absorbed the landing on the beat jump and must have felt off because she worked right out of the beat jump and into choreography before doing a split jump into a ring jump. My question is if there is a deduction for the way she adjusted her skills and moved the ring from after the beat jump to after the split jump. As a UCLA fan, I know she changed the order for her skills, but for outside of some extra momentum of the arm swing, as she absorbs the beat jump as if she's going into another jump, there's really no indication that she adjusted the order. She didn't wobble or have an arm wave either. Ultimately, she still got a great score for the routine, but I'm curious how Spencer would have scored that routine. My recollection is, there was maybe a 0.5 adjustment as she was a little bit off. But she covered well and nothing more than that for doing that. And there's no deduction for just like doing things in a different order. And this is her, obviously an in mind backup plan. Because every gymnast does or should have beam backup plans where like if you're not sure whether you did that combination, if you were a little slow or if you had a wobble, what skills to put in and what order to do them in, so you're starting from a 10, so you don't have to do math in your head on the beam, because most gymnasts would then have a panic attack in the middle of their beam routine and like start crying and just hop off the beam if they have to do like a math problem in their head in the middle of a beam routine. But so you have that planned out and already know that like that's still going to get you to a 10-0 start value. So I'm sure this is like, okay, I was off after the beat jump, so I'm going to do my backup. Still starts from a 10. No other deductions except for that, at least, except for maybe a little adjustment. If it was evident that, like, oh, I balanced and readjusted my feet after my beat jump because I wasn't quite on to do the ring.
SEC debacle from Anthony.
Anthony says, personally, I think the SEC's decision not to allow the low seed to compete is absolutely valid. However, it is really stupid that a national qualifying score determines who doesn't get to compete and not the head-to-head win-loss records. Your win-loss has to do with your actual conference, and your conference performance should determine it, like in every other sport, for seeding you for the conference tournament. Arkansas should have been in that meet because they were head-to-head better than a majority of teams because of their performances when the teams came to visit them. NQS should not matter until seeding for nationals, and that should start at the regional tournament. Furthermore, I do not believe that the team that is kicked out should be able to qualify an athlete on every... I do believe that the team that is kicked out should be able to qualify an athlete on every apparatus and the all-around for her to compete for the SEC titles.
Yep. So to recap this, new championships format, and we covered this on the show this week, and we came down firmly on this is a preventable mess. This is unfair, but also a preventable mess that Arkansas ended up in. Which, to reiterate, Arkansas did try to have a meet, but I don't know when they tried to have a meet.
Would that meet have even been approved?
Well, that's the thing. Would it have been approved?
If the argument is the appeal argument that the committee said was like, you can't add a meet. After they appealed, then they were like, you can't add a meet right now. That presumably that reasoning would also have applied if they tried to host one. So we don't.
And that's the thing. So they could only have had that approved by the reasoning of the NCAA committee if they had done it before December 31st or whenever the cutoff date was for adding a meet to your schedule that isn't a meet because of circumstances, which we refer to the norovirus and violent diarrhea era of gymnastics meets. So preventable if they had scheduled it ahead of time, which is why we came down on the SEC teams should have the one that didn't make it meet scheduled somewhere with assigned judges, and you just don't know what everyone has it on their schedule. You just don't know who's going to go. That's how it should be if they're going to keep this format for TV with no buys, so only 8 teams compete instead of 9. Having said that, so to fix this problem, our fix-it list for this, number 1, that you don't leave a team out would fix it, but TV won't allow it. So number 2 is you have the 9th team meet scheduled with Oregon State every year because Oregon State also doesn't have any other
for now, but there are going to be other gymnastics programs joining the Pac-12
eventually.
So,
but it could still be with them. You have a
I mean, you can do whatever you want. As we've talked about with the NCAA, like if you apply to do things early enough, like you can do whatever you want. It's just if you apply to the NCAA Gymnastics Committee at the last minute, they're going to be like, no, we don't like you.
Yeah.
My thing with the head-to-head is that nothing in college gymnastics is determined by head-to-head. Like that's not how the system works. So then if you like the Big Ten, do they still do this? At the conference championship would determine who's in which session by the head-to-head. And sometimes it would come up with weird, like, wait, why is that team in this session? But so I think
head-to-head is more fun. It should matter.
I mean, there is an argument for head-to-head being the whole basis for rankings, but like you'd have to have coefficients. And like if you think NQS is controversial, wait till there's like a strength of schedule coefficient put in to ranking the gymnastics teams. Like, oh, disaster.
But in terms of just for SEC championships, Like it's their conference. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, and there is precedent. Like the Big Ten has done that, so
Yeah.
there is precedent for doing that. I like NQS, so
Yeah, I mean, you can see that would be if a team, for instance, which has totally happened in the past, loses, 3 gymnasts in 1 week who were part of their starting lineup, that their scores counted on all 4 events. So in all the head-to-head meets, and then they don't have those gymnasts going into championships, then championship season, you can think like, oh well, that's not really, they're not gonna have,
welcome
it's
to
not the same
sports.
team, but that's sports, right?
I mean, look at like Wilberforce this season, the new program. They got their best score in the very first meet because they were still like healthy enough, and then people started getting injured, and they're like, "Oh, we have 5 gymnasts doing floor, and someone who's like last minute floor, and is gonna get a 7." Like this is what happens on a team, and they didn't, pull out of meets.
And then there's the argument, of course, like Anthony, I think so I agree with you. I love strength of schedule, but also there's the argument that like now Arkansas has an advantage because they had a week off when everybody else had to travel and compete.
Well, if you're Jordan and Chris and Kyla, that's what you're telling the team, certainly.
Yeah,
We're
totally.
like, this is our secret weapon. Now that we couldn't compete, we're going to be, and they can be like, if like KJ would kill for this kind of underdog narrative that Arkansas has been given to tell the team, like, everyone's against us. They're trying to keep us down. The whole NCAA, they didn't let us have a meet. It's so unfair. Everyone hates us, and we're going to show them at regionals. Yada yada
yada. What was that comment that we had that you put up?
From Karen said, I know you've probably talked about this a million times, but why is Oregon State not in a conference?
They are.
They're just still in the Pac-12, which they have been in before, but they're the only gymnastics program in the Pac-12, so they don't have anyone to compete against for a conference championship. The reason is money, but money because of television contracts in other conferences. The Pac-12 basically was super mismanaged, and schools with big athletic programs were like, we are not making nearly as much money as we want to from our sports. When we look at teams in the schools in the Big Ten, schools in the SEC that have more favorable contracts, we want that so we can make more money. So then there was a realignment. UCLA, USC, which doesn't have a gymnastics program, they go to the Big Ten, which kind of starts breaking up the Pac-12. Teams like Cal and Stanford are suddenly like, we don't have a good conference. So then they ended up going to the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, because they're on the Atlantic Coast. And then, Oklahoma also left the Big 12 to go to the SEC, which is also more money in the SEC. So it's all everyone abandoned ship because of various financial opportunities that presented themselves elsewhere.
Can we go a little longer because we have so many questions?
Sure.
If you liked what you heard, get more by joining Club Gym Nerd. Club Gym Nerd, you get discounts and first dibs on live show tickets, an extra whole podcast every week, athlete dossiers for major competitions, code guides, options to commission your own segments. It also makes a great gift. Check it out at gymcastic.com at the Join the Club tab.